You've got to create a comfortable environment, a competitive environment. But I want the young, because we have the academy train with us as well, I want the young academy scrum half who sits at the back of the room to put his hand up if he sees someone on the screen that he doesn't agree with or he doesn't understand. I want that comfort within the group, and we have it at the moment. I have a senior group of players who are good like that with the lads, and will come to me if somebody is struggling. They'll come to me with that player. But I have a relationship with everyone in the building, and it means a lot to me. I want them to be comfortable. I don't know them that well, but I've done an exceptional amount of homework on them from players who've played with them and coaches who've worked with them. It became very clear early on in the piece when I started speaking to them that they were the right people. But I'm looking forward to having a tight group and getting to know them better.
Graham, I'm trying to remember if the last time we sat down and did a lengthy interview like this was just before you were about to start the job or whether you had just started it. But either way, the job over the last 2 years, has it been what you expected it to be?
It was just before. It was June 22, wasn't it? I'd not contractually started and not got into pre-season. It is what I expected it to be. I've learnt a lot about myself, really, and about pressure, dealing with pressure. I managed to assemble a cracking group of coaches under me, who I'm blessed with, if I'm honest with you. And I've enjoyed seeing how they've developed. Is it what I thought it would be? Yeah, in terms of the day-to-day, the decisions you've got to make, the pressure. I didn't anticipate it being as rough as it was at the start of my first season. It's been well documented. We weren't flash. You know, in hindsight's a wonderful thing, and I hate looking back, if I'm honest with you, but you've got to learn. In hindsight, I probably changed a bit too much in that off-season. We changed completely how we played the game, new coaching team, changed how we trained. It became evident we weren't really fit enough, and our skills weren't good enough under pressure. So that we had to figure that out in a very short period. Unfortunately, the season started before we'd figured it out.
Number of things I want to pick up on there, but just talk to me about the skills, because I suppose there's an expectation when players get to this level, when you sign a professional contract for Munster and you get into the first team squad, that you have a high skill level. But how true is that? How much do you still actually have to develop those skills, particularly if you're going to be executing them at a higher pace at the game that you reach?
It's under pressure. It's under fatigue. And the pace of the game, which we've got to, you have to be very good. I mean, we're taking the ball to the line, and the opposition running at you could be very good at taking the ball to the line, making late decisions, good decisions, and being able to do that under fatigue and playing at a high. Everyone talks about ball in play, Matt, ball in play time, and we want that, and we probably weren't. I'm getting a bit technical here. I don't want to get too technical. We probably weren't ready for that last year in terms of our high skill repetition, repeatedly doing the same skill under pressure. And we dropped ball. We made mistakes. Oppositions capitalised on that, and the rest is history. Suddenly you've lost your first 2 games and the pressure's on.
Yeah, but be technical with me for a second, because what do you expect players to do in situations like that? How many of the moves are pre-rehearsed, and it's about players getting into a particular position to be able to take that pass? Or how much do you encourage players to suddenly change their mind, realising the player's not quite in the position and they've got to go for another option?
Well, the art is training where they've got the skills and they know which skill to use. You give them a toolbox. You've got to train a way where they've got all the tools available, and knowing in that moment under pressure when somebody's running at you doing the right thing, seeing that pass through or passing it on. I mean, attack now. You asked me to get technical now.
Yeah.
Attack now. You're telling lies. You're just telling lies to the opposition. You've got guys running at you, and I've got to convince him I'm carrying the ball, so he stays on me. That the last minute I'm going to pass to him. If I don't convince him to stay on me, he's going to tackle him. So that pass, he's going to get man and ball. Little things like that, which we really, with Mike coming in, I wanted our attack to challenge team. I wanted us to become a possession-based team, and our skills just weren't there, and the skills under pressure weren't there, and it took us a while to get there.
Already, there's one word I think you've used 4 or 5 times.
Skills?
No, pressure.
Pressure.
Pressure, yeah. In different contexts. And I'm going to come back to the pressure on you personally, because it was the first time you used it. But pressure on the pitch, is that something that's a constant for players, do you reckon? That they're always, and they have to be switched on to be able to deal with the pressure of decision making, the pressure of what the opposition is doing to them, all other types of pressure, the pressure of the circumstances maybe of the game.
Yeah, it's a pressure job. I remember as a player, it's a pressure job. You're always knackered. You're always tired from training. We've really tapered our training now, but you're always tired, and the pressure's on. Big occasions, big crowds, teams challenging you. You're knackered. You've got to get up off the floor, make the right decision. The pressure's on all the time. It's training that way. That's the challenge. That's what we've changed fundamentally, is training in that way, so the game would be used to those pressure demands.
There's an awful lot made of data use now, the tracking the players and as to how many sprints they might make in a game and the intensity and the rest of it. But can those data monitors track a player's ability to cope with pressure?
Yeah, they can, because objectively, they can see if somebody stops getting there in time. The big number I use, you talk about metrics, is accelerations. So you can't ignore all this data, these little fag packet size things, units they're wearing their shirts. You can't ignore that data. I'm not led by it all the time. You've got to trust your eyes. Now, I get asked a lot about substitutions. Am I looking at data for substitutions? No, I can see if a player's struggling, or tactically if we want to make that change. But I like the data of accelerations, because it tells me if I want to get there, support my mate, or I want to get there, make that tackle or not.
That's very interesting, because I did an event.
Does that answer the question?
It does. I had an interview with Paul O'Connell recently at a UCC rugby event, and he said the thing that he looks for most in a player, and indeed the Irish management looks, is the ability to accelerate. So you've used exactly the same word. So is this something that almost comes down from the IRFU into the provinces as well, that what you're looking for in players, a lot of the time, the players who are going to go all the way to the top, is that ability to be able to accelerate into situations as required during the game?
It's not come down from the IRFU. And as much as we are controlled by them, they're not like that. You've got to train like this, you've got to pick him. No, but I like it because it's a decision. It's just a pure decision. Do I want to get there or not? And you can measure it. And there's all sorts of metrics, high speed running. We measure how quick they get off the floor. I mean, you measure their total distance. But that's interesting. Paul says that, because that's the same metric that I will look at. It's just to see their want, Matt, to get there and do something.
But how much time do you also spend in getting to know players so that you can actually trust them to perform on the pitch, the psychological as well as the physical abilities that they display?
I have a relationship with everyone in the building, and I want them to feel they can come to me. Selection in particular. I select the team as late as possible in the week, because it gives me competition through the week and it lets us have a good look at different combinations. So I'll announce the team on a Thursday morning, which is quite unusual, but it seems natural to me. And I'll say, come and see us if you've got any selection issues, and it's an open door. I want everyone to know where they are in the game. I don't want anyone sat there thinking, why am I not getting picked? And on that as well, I don't want anyone sat in a meeting not wanting to put the hand up, being afraid to put the hand up. So you've got to create a comfortable environment, a competitive environment. But I want the young, because we have the academy train with us as well, I want the young academy scrum half who sits at the back of the room to put his hand up if he sees someone on the screen that he doesn't agree with or he doesn't understand. I want that comfort within the group, and we have it at the moment. I have a senior group of players who are good like that with the lads, and will come to me if somebody is struggling. They'll come to me with that player. But I have a relationship with everyone in the building, and it means a lot to me. I want them to be comfortable. Look with the Anton Frisch situation. Anton's circumstances changed. He wants to play for France in France, and we agreed to let that happen. I want him to be happy. I don't want to keep him here if he doesn't want to be here.
How important is it for Munster to bring through your own players? That even for the connection with the fans who like seeing new imports and transfers in, but that there are new young players who come through. So just to take example, if you might have with Simon Zebo retiring, that Cork sees Ben O'Connor coming through as a potential replacement in the future, that you have Brian Gleeson coming through as a potential back row player after his success in the under-20s. How important do you think is that with the fan base and the connection?
It's important to me. And certainly I'm not afraid to pick those players, and I've factually done that, and which creates different good pressures within the group. We have the young men training with us, and I'm picking them, and it says to the other young lads, crikey, if I do well, Graham will give me a chance, and I'll keep picking them. And it says to the older guys as well, you're going to be looking over your shoulder. But I want the bedrock of the club and the playing squad to be Munster. I do. And we're very lucky now. The way we're set up now, we have Ian Costello as our head of our rugby operations, who makes sure the alignment is all the way down to the 16-year-olds in Bantry. We know what's out there, we know what's coming through it, and the terminology. My youngest son is in our system, he's in the 18 system, and I love going to watch him train because the terminology is the same calls, same moves. That flow is going to be all the way down through the club, because I want those guys coming through. You need, and it's proven to be successful for us, you need a sprinkling of external stardust. We've had some South Africans come over and been legends. Look at CJ Stander. We've got RG Steinem leaving us, unfortunately. But you need that bit of external stardust for the club, because it gives the guys something different. And all of those guys I've just mentioned there have been brilliant for the group. They bring over a different culture, different experiences. But the bedrock of the club, the heartbeat of the club is Munster.
How many players do you think can you bring through in any particular year? And the reason I ask this is, for example, we all know about the conveyor belt in Leinster coming off the schools, which are almost obsessed with rugby. But in some respects, there are good players who might get lost because they don't get the opportunities with so many players coming through the funnel. In any particular year, how many new players would you like to see coming through the academy system to be genuine first-team contenders?
Right, minimum of 10, which we've done this year. We've blooded over 10 guys coming through. Sometimes, Matt, that's with injuries. We had 30 guys unavailable at one point. Everyone, at some point in the season, has an injury crisis. We seem to have really had a big one over Christmas. That makes you go deeper into your squad. But because of how we're set up in how we train, those guys, they're up to speed. They know how we're playing, how we're training, and they've got that experience. But I want at least 10, 12 guys coming through.
In any particular year? Is that realistic?
That doesn't mean they have to play every week.
Okay.
But they'll come through and get capped.
Yeah, but how many of them do you think are likely to be eventually playing every week?
I'll have to wait and see. Ask me in a couple of years how often Gleeson's playing, Rowan Quinn, Ethan Coughlin. Ask me in a couple of years. I'll give you a more definitive number. But I want them to come through, and I've seen the numbers of what's come through this year. We've blooded some younger men.
Go back to something you said to me earlier, that you did learn a lot about yourself in taking the job, particularly in the early times when you came under pressure. So what did you learn about yourself?
Dealing with pressure, keeping a belief in what we were doing. I wasn't stupid. First time as head coach. I've been around the game as a coach for a long time, but you come in and have your worst start to the season as a Munster Rugby team in God knows how many years. Keeps you up at night. And you learn about thinking about the right thing, the context of what you can do about it. But I knew I could see a connection with the coaches from the playing group. I could see the players and the coach. I could see a connection. I could see green shoots, I think is the expression, in what we were doing on the training field. I could see that coming through, and it was a case of, let's keep going, lads.
Did you ever doubt yourself? Was there ever?
Who doesn't doubt themselves?
But did you change
I'm
because
human.
of that doubt?
Did I change?
Yeah. Did you change some of the things that you'd planned to do and go, oh God, I had this plan. This isn't actually going to work. I need to do it differently.
Yeah. I tweaked a few things, yeah. I didn't change my fundamental beliefs of how I want us to play the game. As I said to you, I wanted us to become a possession team. I want us to train quicker. A lot of it was, you just got to keep pointing forward, keep going, keep the belief. We use the word belief a lot. It's used a lot in sport. Just keep that belief within the group.
But from what you say, that sort of implies that it was the very early stages of last season. But things weren't going brilliantly in around February either, were they? And then you suddenly came like a train at the end to go on and win the URC. So did you have doubts again around that period, for example, when you went out of the Champions Cup?
The first 7 games weren't great. I think we were 14th or 13th going into November. But I was quite joyed because we were within 9 points, I think, of 6th place as the league stood then. That was going into November. We had a week off. Then we came back and we played South Africa in Pairc, which is just a cathartic moment. It just pressure's off. It's just a special night. I remember the warm-up. It was a warm night, but damp. It was the warm-up and the atmosphere, the smoke, and Pinergy had branded everything. And it was just, there was a different feeling to it. And there's a different feeling the whole week. There's no pressure. There's no league points.
Yeah. This is enjoyment. This is fun.
Yes, it's going to be ourselves. And we played really well.
And were you aware of the tradition of Munster and touring teams?
Of course I was. Yeah, of course I was. Which we spoke about in the week. You know, we spoke how lucky we were as a group, players and coaches, to be involved in international games. The club's built on it. Famous games. Anyway, that game, we won that, and that just catapulted us on. We got guys back from the autumn series, and we beat Connacht at home. We beat Edinburgh away. We narrowly lost to Leinster Stevens Day. Then we went and beat Ulster on New Year's Day in the last minute of the game. I mean, some big results. We were going well. We got ourselves back on the horse, so to speak. Had a good run of games. Narrowly lost to Toulouse twice in Europe. And we beat Treviso at the end of January. We beat Scarlets. We lost Tom Tierney, one of our very influential young coaches, passed away in the early February. We played Scarlets and Ospreys in that time. Before the Scarlets game in particular, we had Tom's funeral the day before, and a lot of young men were affected by that, which affected our game against Scarlets, which brought them back into the game. Then we got a massive punch in the nose by Glasgow. We're 28-0 down at half-time, Matt. And we learnt a lot in that game. We came back. We narrowly lost the game. The next week, we had to go to Sharks in Europe. And at 50 minutes, we just capitulated in 29-degree heat, and they overpowered us. You know, we still scored 3 tries in the third quarter. But they overpowered us. Now we came home and stripped the game down.
Yeah, did you really feel pressure again at that stage?
Of course I did.
And did you feel that, oh, geez, I thought we turned it around and now we're going into reverse again?
Definitely. I use that analogy. We were back in the hole. We'd lost to Glasgow at Thomond, 28-0 down at half-time. I'll never forget half-time in that dressing room.
What do you say in a situation like that?
Yeah, messaging was very brief. We were losing a lot of the collision battles. We just lost the breakdown. We had to tidy that up. Glasgow did a few things tactically, but things were good going into the game. We got ourselves into a good position playing wise, but we got a big punch in the nose. We weren't there physically. Unfortunately, the next week, as I say, we had to go down to Durban. We got another punch in the nose. Then we came back, as I say, stripped the game down, changed a couple of things around how we trained. Dennis had looked into a couple of things in our defence that needed to improve. Then we went back down to South Africa, beat the Stormers, drew against the Sharks, had a try, decided to win the game in Durban. 22nd of April, we'd limped into the playoffs. We'd got a European qualification spot. There's a few million reasons why it's good to be in Europe, which that was a pressure as well going into that game. We'd limped into the playoffs. And then suddenly, and I remember saying to the lads, we come down to South Africa unbeaten. We come back from South Africa unbeaten. You can go anywhere and people will respect you. And we had belief, and we were picking the same group every week. We hadn't got the option of leaving a load of guys back home when we went to South Africa. We had to take the same group, and we became battle hardened, was the expression I'd use. And we went to Glasgow, beat them. Then semi-final against Leinster. Wasn't their strongest team, but we still did what we did to win that game. And you go down to a final with a lot of belief in what we were doing, just from being on the road. And we won the final.
The number of players, do you think, as players mature because of what they went through in that period, particularly all the away games and the pressure involved?
The group became tighter, and we did mature. I think the likes of Crowley in particular became a really composed leader within the group. He won't mind me saying that. But the older heads as well, as they have done this season, like Sir Pete. Keith Earls did 80 minutes in the semi-final because we went 6-2. Conor Murray, the ability to bring him in and settle things down. Yeah, the group grew significantly. And you go down to Stormers, you've got nothing to lose. We had a good plan tactically. And that was a challenge as well. If you've got 50,000 fans in the stadium, I think it was 5,000 Munster fans who made themselves heard.
But that can either intimidate a team or it can lift them, depending on the mentality of the squad, doesn't it?
Because we've been on the road,
yeah.
I mean, we had 6 games away from home to win a final. Because we've been away, that kind of fueled us, that.
This comes back to the thing, you can't measure that with data, can you? That comes down to character, and it comes down to morale within a squad and desire. These things that can't be measured in your data analytics.
Yeah, totally. You become, I keep saying it, you become battle hardened. You can go on the road. And the ability, when you're up against it, under pressure, the ability to keep calm, stick to your plan. You know, in the semi-final and the final, our winning scores were within the last 6 minutes of the game because of how we trained and just that belief that we gained from doing it away from home. It's a year ago now. I can't believe it's a year. It's a year ago. A year ago this day, on the Wednesday post the final, I was gluing the top back on the trophy. We got a bit heavy the night before. It was the homecoming. It's fine now. The trophy looks the same. Yeah, a year ago, flipping heck, a year. Here we are again.
But just how much of a release of pressure was it to actually win the URC? For you personally, to win it in your first season as head coach, but also for Munster, not having won a trophy since 2011. Players like Peter O'Mahony, having gone through all those years without having the opportunity to win something, Keith Earls. How important was that just for relieving pressure on you and on the club?
Everything. A bit of a whirlwind, really. I remember sat 22nd of April in Durban, travelling back to the hotel. We'd limped into the playoffs. I think, crikey, this could have been worse, you know, given the start we'd had to the season and given what had happened in February against Glasgow and the Sharks. And then it just became week by week, building that belief. No, it was massive. It was massive for us and the club. You know, a whole host of emotions came out after the game. Immensely proud of doing it. Trouble is,
it creates its own new pressures, doesn't it?
You want to do it again.
Yeah. And the expectations go up because suddenly the expectations are not just go back and defend and win the URC again, but then the expectation as well, what about Europe now? Let's have another crack at Europe.
Yeah, and we were immensely excited about Europe coming into this season. And it's well documented where we missed an opportunity in our first game against Bayonne at home. We were scrabbling away for that third try, which we didn't get. We drew that, and then we had to go to Exeter, and I was convinced we were going to win that game because we were doing so much good stuff. And we got the bonus point, 53 minutes, and then our world fell apart.
Can you explain what happened?
No.
You can't.
I can't.
Not even on all the reviews, you can't work out what went wrong.
But then you have this perfect alignment of planets against us. They score this wonder try. Just incredible. We kicked off. They box kicked it back. We didn't deal with that well. And then their second row came through, got this ricochet ball out of Calvin Nash's hands, ripped it out of him, managed to do that and score a try. It was this wonder try. Jack Dunn, I think, he was the second row at Leinster.
He was.
You're thinking, has that just happened? It was just a wonder try. That happened. All right, okay, we're still in the game. And then we weren't. They scored again at the end there. Off Conor Murray throws a ball. They've got a lazy runner coming back. It's a penalty any other day, but no, they get the ball, intercept, and Slade scores. Suddenly the game's just been robbed, just been taken away from you. Yeah, that was hard to take. Then Europe again, then we get back on the horse against Toulon, one of our greatest away victories in Toulon. And then the next week, Northampton come to Chaoimh in the rain. There's quite a wind at night, and they chose to play against the wind. I thought, oh, right, they fancy themselves here. And they had a 6-2, a good bench. And we lost away in that game. We just lost our way in the rain and in the wind in that game.
And did that surprise you, that given that the way the team had matured in winning the URC last season, and given the expectations that you had, that on a number of occasions in Europe this year, you lost your way?
Yeah, it's frustrating, and we have analysed it significantly. Ironically, this group of players not played a lot in the rain. We seem to train in it every bloody day. I know that, but tactically.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that a Munster team, given the amount of rain that you get in Limerick and in Cork, would struggle to play in the rain seems quite bizarre.
With this game plan that we have, we'd not have to manage a game in the rain much. And it caught us twice this year. And I don't mind saying this publicly because it's quite bloody obvious, really. Connacht, New Year's Day, we didn't deal with the rain and the wind as much as we should have. And particularly in that Northampton game, we learnt a lot from that, just tactically with the wind. But I say again, they won the toss and they chose to play against the wind and use the power of their bench in the second half. We learnt a lot from that. We learnt a lot. We've been doing that a lot ourselves recently, using the bench a lot earlier.
Indeed, and I want to get to that because that is one of the key questions.
Okay.
But just a little bit more, when you went to Northampton, and I'm not looking to make excuses for you, but you played very well in the away game.
The round 16 game.
Yeah, and you had a lot of illness, which it looked like players ran out of gas, did they? Because there was a lot of illness in the squad.
A really bright start. We were banging on the door early on, a couple of good tries. Dennis was upset. A couple of set-piece tries that were too easy for them in that game. And they can play rugby, Northampton. And they kick the ball more than any other team in the Prem, actually. They have a good balance to their game. No, we fell away. We fell away in the last quarter of the game. And factually, with illness, it turns out it was deeper into the squad than I realised, to be honest with you. Took us a couple of weeks to get over that. R.G. Steinem was nearly admitted to hospital at one point within that week. No, we lost away at the end of that game. I was proud of our effort. I often use that word a lot. I am proud of what we do in our lads. I was proud of our effort, but we gave them a few too many just free. We give them presents. Yeah, have this have this turnover. You know, and there were big moments at the end there. Crowley's chasing the game, and he tries to fish Jack O'Donoghue out. The pass goes to Deck, and they come through 2 phases later. They've scored. There's a couple of big swing moments there, Matt, in that game, because they're a team that can hurt you quickly on transition like that. But no, we lost away in the last quarter of that game, which meant we were out of Europe, which kind of gave us another regroup time. It reminds me this time, at the same time last year, a bit of time to regroup, knowing we were going back down to South Africa. And what we had this year was we had that knowledge, we're going out to South Africa, lads. Look what it did for us last year. And we booked the same hotel in Cape Town that we stayed at last year twice, the President Hotel in Bantry Bay in Cape Town. We booked that, even though we were playing in Johannesburg twice. We booked that out to go down there, then come back up to beat the Lions, because the lads know that place. It's a good environment.
Whoever's looking after the budgets must be delighted with you for insisting on
save money elsewhere.
Additional flights between Cape Town and Johannesburg.
We save money elsewhere, don't we, Kieran? We save money elsewhere. No, it meant a big deal. And I was getting questions, right? You're playing the Blue Bulls at altitude, 1,600 metres above sea level. You're going down to Cape Town for a week, then coming back up, play the Lions. Yeah, because we know Cape Town, we know the venue. There's a lot of good data around coming up late from sea level to play at altitude as well. But it was more so, the lads know the environment there. They really like where we stay in Cape Town, the big recovery pool outside the hotel. There's nice restaurants locally. And we knew going down there how it brought us together last year, and it happened again this year, man. It just brought us together. And we played well, and we've continued that form, touch wood, until now.
You mentioned something I had wanted to bring up with you, and this is the 6-2 split on the bench and the use of players from an early stage. There seems to have been a switch in Irish rugby, because this has happened on the national team as well.
First time this season he did it in the Six Nations. Yeah.
Are you becoming a Munster man?
I think I already am. I am. Yeah, I am. I can't imagine being anywhere else, if I'm honest with you. It's everything I want it to be. You know, lifestyle, my family, enjoy it here, but what the club stands for, the people I work with, that's enough for me. You know, I don't crave doing anything differently. I mean that. We'll see how long they have me.